Welcome into the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new record from Bright Eyes, entitled 5 Dice, All Threes. They released that on September 20th. This is the 11th studio album for Conor Oberst and company, and their follow-up to 2020's Down in the Weeds, Where the World Once Was. A band that once had a very prolific output. I'm really just thrilled to see a follow-up record coming off of that hiatus that lasted almost a decade. The last time that we had new material from Bright Eyes, 2011's The People's Key. Now, obviously, Conor and longtime collaborators Mike Mogis, Nate Walcott were doing their own solo work. So if you're not familiar with this outfit, I mean, you have Bright Eyes Records, and then you have all of their output in the last decade, which that'll be a fun little adventure for all of you to dive in if you're not familiar. But Conor, over the years, great combination of punk rock and folk. And I think the outcome of bringing those things together is this edgy alternative sound. And I'd really, put them with contemporaries like Wilco. Neutral Milk Hotel is definitely a band that comes to mind. Think of The War on Drugs and My Morning Jacket. But the punk drive, I love, reading about those early influences for him, talking about The Cure, talking about Fugazi, talking about REM. And the Smiths, for better or for worse, because Morrissey sucks, but Johnny Marr's the man. I love that in conjunction with the folk element. He talks about Bob Dylan, Emmylou Harris, talks about John Prine, Leonard Cohen. And then, working into that rock and roll element too, guys like Neil Young as well. And it's just a really unique sound and an edgy sound that he's generated over the years. He's one of those songwriters. I love his attention to detail in his songwriting. I've heard some people say that there's a level of detriment to doing that, but I don't see how it's any different than writing a novel. I mean, really trying to take your reader into a scene, or in this case, your listener, into a scene and just painting that picture in the most vivid way that you possibly can. There's times when when that's enjoyable. There's often times when I listen to, when we talk about instrumental music, I like to bring that up as far as the music being able to take you to a place, but with no lyrical content, the listener is able to, kind of form their own concept of what is going on outside of that. It's, it just depends on what your mood is, what you want your experience to be. But I think that Conor, in his attention to detail, I mean, he really has a literary quality to his writing. And I love the sardonic nature. He has a perspective on life, and especially as he's getting older on this particular record. I'd argue it's maybe edgier than most of the stuff that he's put out over the years from a lyrical standpoint. Some might call it snarky. Some might call it cynical. I would disagree. I think that, and this is something that I argue as I've gotten older, life is absurd and really crazy sometimes. And I know people that allow it to upset them, that allow it to get the best of them. And there's been moments in my life where I've allowed that to happen. And so with that experience and trying not to, let the absurdity of life take advantage of me, I laugh. It's just what I do. And I feel like Conor on this record is one of those guys that, there's moments where he's really talking about some hard stuff thematically, but the perspective is one of just like, hey man, like what are you going to do? Like sometimes life just throws you these curveballs and you got to deal. And there's this positive perspective of, at least you're here to experience it, right? I mean, what would life be if you just woke up every day and did the same just damn boring stuff, right? So from time to time, it's fun to have a little adventure, and writing half of these songs with Alex Orange Drink. So I think that working with him definitely helps. I mean, his name just cracks me up. I can't get over it. But he's working with him on about half the songs. Nate Walcott contributes to songwriting credits on 3 or 4 of these tracks. And then Mike doing the recording on this thing. So I love just this big group effort. These guys, they belong together. I really am a big believer in them making music, being in the studio, not like in this day and age, whenever they feel the impetus, whenever they feel the drive, you can't force the creative process. And like I said, it might have been 4 years, but it's really cool to just have a brand new record from this outfit. I think there's You know, I think of Billy Corgan, I think of the Smashing Pumpkins just off the top of my head. But sometimes when you have this project, you have like you tend to get into, I feel like a state of mind with a certain project. And I feel like with Bright Eyes, it just takes Connor to a different place creatively, and all the guys, frankly, outside of, you know, their solo work. And so that's what's so brilliant about it. They're great solo artists, but then they come together and they have this unique thing. And, you know, as the years go on, they can vary it up. And I think that all of us can agree that it's just super cool to have, you know, all the potential there for new music from these guys. So this thing, it kicks off with Five Dice. Big theme here, obviously, as well. And, you know, we're talking about that idea of levity, of just kind of being able to step back and to laugh at things and to still appreciate what life brings to the table, even in its absurdity. And he talks about how life is just, it's a roll of the dice. And oftentimes, you know, you have these peaks and valleys. And so when you're in those peaks, you need to just keep rolling the dice and run with that positive energy. And when you hit the valleys, you need to understand that life hits those like it's going to hit those spots. And you know, you need to just persevere and do what you need to do to get through it. So Five Dice is basically just kind of like a vocal opening. There's just all these different conversations that create this mood, create this energy. And I like the tension that it builds. And it leads into bells and whistles. And it was fun getting into some reviews after listening to this record, hearing people's thoughts, or you know, reading people's thoughts on bells and whistles. And I first of all, I think the track is excellent. Some people argued that the energy coming off of that intro just disappoints. I disagree. And I think that part of what's ironic about the song is that it's very uplifting, it's very bright. It's and like, I think the drum roll coming out of the intro of Five Dice is excellent. I think the energy carries well, but you get this upbeat whistling melody. It's this like hard-edged indie rock song with all of these bright poppy elements. The bells and whistles, right? It's freaking hilarious. Connor's that kind of guy. He's brilliant. And I think that this song musically is incredible, but there's also an element of not taking yourself too serious and playing around with that, you know, to those of you who didn't catch that, sorry, like, I just kind of feel bad for you. I think this opening track is freaking brilliant. And I love it ultimately, like, I think it's raw and beautiful, and I really still think it captures that signature Conor Oberst edge. El Capitan is your third track. Frenetic acoustic guitar to open on this thing. I dig that. Vocal enters. Great drum roll, bass, and piano build in on this thing. And that just carries this driving energy. I love the brass that works into close on this song. Really a great part of that. And it feels just like a little bit of a burn on California here. Maybe I'm misinterpreting that. But, man, I was just out in California about 2 months ago, and it is a beautiful place, but man, it's just full of nonsense. And unfortunately, like, a lot of like the situation with fires, that's one of the big mentions in here. Talks about you know, how California is on fire, how it's become a crucible, and it's really very tragic, very sad. I think many of us probably know people that, you know, they own homes or in situations where, like, they can't even get homeowners insurance because of that situation. Their homes are literally worth nothing. And it like, it's just one of the many monstrosities that, you know, Connor, like, I love that he calls out anything. Like, everything is fair game to this guy. I don't feel like he has displayed partisanship, but when it comes to the recording process, you know, I will give him the benefit of the doubt on that, because lyrically, on record, everyone and everything is fair game, and he doesn't side with anybody. Like, everybody is subject to his criticism, and I dig that about the guy. Bassanalder is your fourth track. Big drum roll, bright piano, and it takes this subtle backseat when the verse hits. I like that. I like how prominent it is in the intro, and the way that it backs off into this complimentary role. Takes a lot of nerve to live on planet Earth. Yes, it does. And then he quotes Charles Dickens after that line. I love that. Again, the criticism that I read, a lot of it was like, it's too literary. That's some dumb shit, if I can just say that. I love the literary references, the great writing, the quotes are solid, and that's a really dope song. Enjoyed that a lot. Tiny Suicides is your fifth track. Big drum roll ushers in mellow piano, vocal, simple acoustic guitar that backs on that. There's a great crash in the instrumentation in this song, and then I love the steel pedal guitar that gets incorporated there. Great country flair on the song. You get this trippy horn driven breakdown showing off some of that just fun that he can have in a composition, especially within tight space. Does that well. All threes, featuring Cat Power. I love this collaboration here. Simple percussion ushers in piano and bass. You get this moody funk, some bright notes, but like some jazz pop at work here. It's kind of a unique flair that Conor works with from time to time, amongst many other things. The piano is excellent too, but Cat Power's vocal performance just steals the show on the song, and it's phenomenal. Love that track. Your seventh song, Rainbow Overpass, is a folky arpeggiated riff is going to usher in this raw punk garage rock track. I love it. It maintains that feel. It's straightforward and just super solid. One of my favorites. Hate, your eighth song. This is the lyrics are fascinating on this track. They start off very politically driven, I think, but then it just gets to this kind of just general point where, you know, there's moments where he's funny. There's moments where I'm like, yeah, it's like, I feel you. Like, I hate that crap too. And it's, you know, I would say that there's going to be some people that look at this and, you know, they might jaw him a little bit for the lack of, I guess, complexity of poeticism with the lyrics here. But I dig it. And again, this whole record, it's got that edge. It's a little more raw, I'd argue, than most of the stuff that Bright Eyes has done throughout the years. And if you think about it, if you think about the time frame too, Down in the Weeds Where the World Once Was, you know, coming out in 2020, it was pretty much like all that stuff was written before COVID. So you get this record that, you know, it's incorporating that experience and all the other nonsense that we've dealt with in the last 4 years, really. And so I like the approach, and I think it's appropriate, and I think it's really working on this album. Real Feel 105 is your ninth track. Here we go. Find my thing. Simple acoustic shaker and vocal, light atmospheric textures on this thing. Works in a bit of pure organ and piano. Drums come in great again on this thing. A bit of mandolin that comes into work on the track. But I like the moments of minimalism that are working on this particular song. Your 10th song is Spun Out. Drums open up. Great psychedelic folk track. I love that combination there. Piano, a bit of banjo that's brilliant. Love the groove that this track finds too. And incorporating some turntables as well. I dig that element. It hits a couple of times actually on the backside of this record. Trains Still Run on Time is your 11th track. I love the big crash, the guitar and the vocal intro, breakbeat percussion that it finds this tighter groove and it just kind of plays with moving back and forth in that. I like that about the song. And then your penultimate track, The Time I Have Left. It's all in the title there. It's definitely kind of something that Conor spends a lot of times coming to terms with on this record, getting older, running out of time. Like, you know, like there's times where I feel it too, where I feel pressure of like, you know, like I only have so many days. Like I got to wake up and do stuff. And so it's a tough thing to wrap your head around, but that's what music's for. Music is brilliant and so important because it helps us cope with that kind of stuff. And so as a penultimate track with Matt Berninger as well from The National, I mean, what more could you want? Ominous piano, vocal to open, beautiful melodies at work that develop throughout the song, light synth textures, get a little bit more of the turntable action on this song as well. But again, another moment where there's basically a minimal drive and just this kind of like tiny shift in different textures that are driving the track. Excuse me. And then Tin Soldier Boy is your final song, acoustic guitar and harmonica. Get that Neil Young vibe big time on this track. Little piano that works in that's excellent. I like the way that this track builds to its coda. There's a lot of instrumentation that's super fun. You know, Conor really just going to work with everything that's working on this record, driving it. I feel like you're hearing the overwhelming majority of those influences on this final track to really celebrate what's going on here. Great number. Love Bright Eyes. Love that they decided to make a second record coming off of that hiatus, and hopefully the output keeps coming. In the meantime, though, we're gonna give this thing a vinyl please. I'm excited to pick this up, and we'll give it a 7.6 out of 10. I hope you find this review helpful, and I hope you enjoy listening to this record. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2024, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.